not physical vampires. They're a bloodline of psychotics. And they're not even running the show. They just kicked off and funded scientific, there was major science in the 1850s, folks. They focused on the science of control. And this has been copied, it's been exported, it's been refined. There's all these new systems. I'm ranting. I'm going to go back to our guest. You just have to understand what we face. The terms you want to know is the fact that globalism is really totally corrupt scientific colonialism by multinational mega banks and institutions that are above the law and are the new royalty, with the power to tax but are exempt from it. Letter of marque given to their operatives, their mercenaries. And they're reversing the Western invasion where they'd say, you're going to go put on a ship or we're going to kill you. I mean, you think it was fun when, like the 1600s, more than half of crews died routinely, usually about a third, on an African or South American voyage? You think they weren't slaves? And the West then tried to end slavery. But within the West was growing this great evil. And so now you're facing scientific colonialism at a multinational, above the state level, playing the states off against each other, the individuals against each other, the great game times 1,000. And nested in the heart of this, nested in the core of this, is then using the giant third world populations with promises of their own colonialism to come to the West and get the free welfare and the free goodies, to be brought here to be programmed with liberation theology, hate the West theology, and then you conquer the third world and the West by playing them off against each other. And that is their admitted plan. You have been given the enemy's blueprint. What are you going to do about it? Now, Mr. Rawls, I'm going to try to shut up and give you the floor now, but I want to set the table here. Getting back into the military waking up, the bureaucrats waking up, a lot of people understanding now as we near the end game that the Patriots were right the last 60-plus years, from Barry Goldwater up to you and others, warning people. And so now how does that affect the battle space? Where does this go? And why is Islam, as I think you correctly predicted over a decade ago, the secret skeleton key weapon that they're going to use to finish their world government takeover?
Well, Alex, the goal obviously is control. They want to consolidate power. They want to institute a global system, and all the pieces are in place right now to make that happen. With the internet, with the possibility of going cashless for the world currencies, and soon to be just a single currency. I think that's definitely their goal. They have this game plan, and they are indeed, just as you said, playing one group off of another to make all this happen. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the last hour, the real tool that's being used right now, following the end of the Cold War, is using radical Islam as a pawn. And as I mentioned before, I think that that pawn may actually be a knight or a queen in hiding. It's going to turn against them with dramatic results when all is said and done. We are seeing this all play out, and the pace at which change is taking place is getting faster and faster and faster. And they're trying to manipulate this whole game by keeping people in the dark. They're failing at that. And at this point, it's going to come down to crisis, whether it's a global pandemic, whether it's a global economic collapse, or whether it's a global war. They're going to have to play the crisis card very soon, because they basically lost control economically. And they have lost, they don't realize it yet, but they have lost the information war. People like you have woken up too many people. And at this point, the only arrow left in their quiver is absolute crisis.
That's right. And we're now going into it. Hillary admitted they're losing the information war 4 years ago to Congress, but I don't think she even realizes how much they've lost the information war. Is there any way to get these cornered rats to not destroy everything to keep power? Couldn't the states get together in a first-run constitutional convention just to have letters of demand and basically tell the top operatives, stop their anti-American activities, don't shut down power plants, don't let China have unfair trade deals, start there, and then give them a year to exit the United States? I mean, that, of course, as you know, as a student of history, Mr. Rawls, has been done before with corrupt elites who are like a cancer and are too hard to dislodge. I mean, could some type of through-the-system armistice happen and just have these people flake off?
That is possible, and I think one venue for that may be the upcoming Republican National Convention, because they don't control all of those individual delegates. And once a party convention is in a lot of ways like a constitutional convention. Once the floor is open, if enough people call for discussion of a particular topic, it can't be stopped. And I think that at the upcoming Republican National Convention, a lot of these fundamental issues may be raised, and we may see another Barry Goldwater moment for our nation coming up. And it could very well happen there.
That's right, because when they engage in this open theft, it is going to be a huge wake-up call on top of the wake-up call that's already happening, and people are really going to see through it. Do you think it's arrogance overall or fear that they're just nakedly going, yeah, your vote doesn't count, get used to it, all over TV?
Well, the level of arrogance is just horrendous. To think that they can attempt to stage manage an entire political convention by manipulating the rules of that convention, I think it may backfire on them. I think they're, one of two things are going to happen. Either there's going to be absolute pandemonium on the floor, or there's going to be a walkout of a lot of delegates. They may just walk to a hotel across the street and start their own convention.
That's the idea. I'm going to call Roger Stone right now, because obviously his former business partner now is pretty much the head of the campaign. They've still got Lewandowski over there on the side. But wow, that is a great idea. And I kind of think that's what may be actually planned, but it's funny you brought that up.
Well, again, things are spinning out of control. And at this point, again, I think it's going to come down to a massive crisis of some sort as kind of a last-ditch effort for them to maintain their control.
And as things get more out of control, as things get more out of control, it's going to get more out of control and more out of control. Let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being the most out of control, full-on nuclear war happening and just total insanity, and 0 being Valhalla, pastoral utopias. Where are we on that scale, sir?
Well, I'd say we're somewhere in the 80s or the 90s here right now.
Yeah.
They're losing control. And at this point, unless they have a crisis that they can use as the excuse to collapse the stock market, cause a banking crisis, and institute a global currency, they'll need something of that scale to continue to consolidate power, because otherwise power is going to slip through their grasp.
And so what you keep hammering is they're going to pull a crisis, they're going to false flag, or they're going to wind somebody up, and they're going to create a crisis to be the saviors that's so huge it diverts from stealing elections and everything else.
Yeah, they'll probably have a event on a grand scale. It won't just be something like Sandy Hook, okay? It's going to be more like a major assassination, say, for example, of a key political figure or a key candidate that they'll then try to pin on the Patriot movement, for example.
That's right. So they could false flag and kill Donald Trump and blame it on the Patriots, or they could do it to Obama. That's what my gut's been telling me is we're entering the season of a political assassination to be pinned on one group or the other. It won't matter if it ever gets proven. It'll just cause war on the streets.
Yes, and there literally will be blood in the streets if that happens. And again, getting back to the political conventions, the party conventions, coming out of the Democratic convention or more likely out of the Republican convention, we could see a huge uproar, especially if they attempt to broker this convention and put an insider in place of one of the two perceived outsiders.
And that's the only way. I mean, look, I'll be honest. I don't want to scare people. They could do stuff like a low-yield nuke in Cleveland and then, you know, to have Obama declare a civil emergency saying, in a year now, we're going to have an election. And then basically, all the preparations I see is if they're planning something humongous. And I don't want to speculate here, but I said before 9/11, look for them to blow up the World Trade Centers and blame it on their asset, bin Laden. I'm not saying there isn't radical Islam, obviously Saudi Arabia, the 28 pages. I was just saying I could see the preparation. I could see them beta testing. I could see them getting everybody ready. And then I called it exactly as they did it. And I'm telling you, I've never seen such frightening rhetoric. Obama's hyping nuclear terror. Everybody else is saying, oh, mushroom cloud over Manhattan. In your gut and your sources, what are some of the false flag triggers you think that the activating the ISIS Al-Qaeda sleeper cells they have all over the U.S.? What do you think it could be?
It could very well be ISIS here in the United States or another major event in Europe. But I think they, at this point, see the need to step things up a notch. So it won't just be guys pulling out AK-47s and hand grenades and shouting Allahu Akbar. It's going to be more like nuclear dirty bombs or even nuclear devices that reach critical mass, actual nuclear weapons, or biological warfare agents, or massive use of chemical agents in a confined but heavily populated space. And by that I mean something like a subway or a stadium full of people, where there wouldn't just be dozens of deaths or hundreds of deaths. There could be thousands of simultaneous deaths. And that is the level they want to step things up to that level, because it's only out of that level of crisis that they can call for something like martial law.
Wow. And they've already got, quote, civil emergencies in Germany and France, suspending people's rights. It's amazing. What do we do? I mean, I guess we call mainstream media. We do our own shows. Everybody does videos. Everybody becomes their own activist and says, we don't want nuclear terror. If there's nuclear Islamic terror, we hold you responsible, Mr. President. We know you're cooking something. Hey, ugly, we know you're cooking. Don't cook it up for me to reverse what Hank Williams said. I mean, this is, what do we do to stop it?
I really don't know an ideal solution other than to continue to wake people up and encourage people to not give up completely on the political process. I hear so many people who say, it's all over, we can't do anything, no matter who gets into office, they're going to pack the Supreme Court, blah, blah, blah. No, I think there still is hope for the political process. So people need to be aware, they need to be politically active, they need to be incredibly vocal, and don't be buffaloed. There's going to be a lot of changes going on in our country in the next 5 years where they're going to use hate speech laws to try to silence people.
I agree. I want to talk about that next, because the answer is everybody use your speech or lose it. They're openly announcing it. And I want to come back and go to calls.
Right.
But separately, James Wesley Rawls, survivalblog.com. Again, joining us here, if you just tuned in, I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com, syndicated radio/TV transmission every day, 12 noon to 4 p.m. Eastern. Looking at this and looking at the different things that they're pulling, I also think it's important to reach out to some of the bots and some of the mainline liberals who come out to protest Trump. And once they actually talk to the Trump supporters, I see a lot of videos where people are actually coming together. That's not getting a lot of coverage in the media, but it's happening. I mean, when Louis Farrakhan says, we don't need to bring more Muslims in because they're going to blow stuff up and then regular Muslims are going to get blamed, nobody covered that because it makes Trump look so common sense. And so I really see them being afraid of during this crisis, everybody trying to reach out to each other. I mean, I think that's a big part of this.
Yeah, if their goal is to divide groups